Welcome in, everyone, to our deep dive into the world of directors and officers insurance.
D&O.
Yeah, D&O.
For short.
If you're involved in leading a company, especially at that board level,
Yeah,
you're really going to want to listen to this.
that's right.
We're going to be looking ahead to 2025, focusing specifically on those emerging trends in the D&O market.
Yeah.
And we are going to give you some actionable insights to help you make informed decisions about protecting your board.
Absolutely.
We're using a fantastic report from BDI Insurance as our guide. And let me tell you, this thing is packed with some real eye-openers.
Really is.
So, to start off, the D&O market itself is going through some interesting shifts.
Yeah.
After a period of falling rates, we're starting to see signs that premiums might actually start climbing again in 2025.
Uh-huh.
And newly public companies, those fresh from their IPOs, could be hit particularly hard.
Yeah, and this is a critical point, I think, for our listeners to understand. Because if premiums are rising, that means your company could be facing significantly higher costs for D&O coverage.
Right.
And for newly public companies, which are often already facing a lot of scrutiny and a lot of potential liabilities, this can really have an impact on their bottom line.
It's like the landscape is shifting, and boards need to be prepared to navigate that new terrain.
Exactly. And one of the biggest factors driving this shift is the increasing complexity of the risks that directors and officers are facing these days. I mean, we're seeing a surge in shareholder activism, more regulatory scrutiny, a growing awareness of ESG issues, and all of these things can lead to increased D&O liability.
And then there's the whole issue of AI, which is, rapidly transforming the business world.
Right.
And creating a whole new set of potential risks for boards.
AI is a game changer, but it's also a potential minefield.
Yeah.
If an AI system makes a bad decision or if there are concerns about bias or data privacy, the board could be held accountable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about how that technology is being used and whether the board has the right oversight mechanisms in place.
Right. Boards need to be asking tough questions about how AI is being implemented within their organizations, what risks it might pose and what steps they can take to mitigate those risks.
Yeah, this is what gets really interesting to me. It's not just about avoiding lawsuits. It's about being proactive and making sure that your company is using AI responsibly and ethically.
I completely agree. And that's a message that needs to be heard at the highest levels of every organization.
Now let's talk about something that's always been a major concern in the D&O world: litigation.
Right.
The report makes it clear that the D&O market has always been lawsuit prone, and it looks like things are only going to get more intense in the years to come.
Yeah, we're seeing this resurgence of securities class action lawsuits, where shareholders sue over things like inaccurate financial statements or misleading disclosures.
Right.
These cases can be incredibly costly.
Oh.
And boards need to be extra vigilant about their financial reporting and compliance practices.
So basically, transparency and accuracy are more important than ever.
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding deliberate misstatements.
Right.
It's also about making sure that your disclosures are clear, complete, and easy for investors to understand.
And let's not forget about ESG, environmental, social, and governance factors,
Yes.
which are becoming major drivers of D&O risk.
Huge.
Stakeholders are holding companies accountable for their environmental and social impact like never before, and boards that aren't seen as doing enough
Right.
could face legal challenges, reputational damage, even difficulty attracting investors.
The SEC has even issued a new rule requiring companies to disclose climate-related risks in their annual reports.
Wow.
This is a major development, and it really underscores the fact that ESG is no longer just a nice-to-have. It's a must-have for any company that wants to stay ahead of the curve.
So we've got AI, we've got litigation, and we've got ESG all converging to create a more complex and challenging D&O landscape.
It's a lot for boards to juggle.
Oh, yeah.
But being aware of these trends is the first step toward managing the risks effectively.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about these trends in a general sense,
Right.
but I think it's helpful to see how they play out in real-world scenarios.
Absolutely. I agree. So let's dive into a hypothetical situation
Okay.
that really highlights the growing importance of ESG.
Okay.
So imagine a publicly traded energy company that's been talking a big game about transitioning to renewable energy sources.
Sounds familiar.
Right? We've all seen companies making these kinds of pronouncements these days.
Right.
But in this scenario, the company's actions haven't quite caught up to its rhetoric.
Okay.
They've been dragging their feet on investments in renewables,
Yeah.
and they've continued to prioritize fossil fuel extraction.
Okay, so they're talking the talk but not walking the walk.
Precisely. And a group of activist shareholders who are becoming increasingly concerned about the company's lack of progress on ESG issues decide to take action.
Right.
They file a lawsuit
Mm-hmm.
alleging that the company's board has misled investors about its commitment to sustainability and failed to adequately address the risks associated with climate change.
So they're essentially saying that the board is putting the company's future at risk by not taking ESG seriously enough.
That's the crux of their argument, and this kind of lawsuit can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It can
Right.
damage the company's reputation, make it harder to attract investors, and even potentially lead to regulatory scrutiny.
That's a lot of potential fallout, all stemming from a failure to adequately address ESG concerns.
Right, and this scenario really highlights why D&O insurance is so crucial in today's environment.
Oh.
A robust D&O policy can provide coverage for the legal defense costs
Right.
associated with this type of lawsuit, as well as any settlements or judgments that the company might be ordered to pay.
It's like a safety net for the board and the company, protecting them from the financial consequences of these kinds of claims.
Precisely. And it also underscores the importance of working with experienced insurance professionals who really understand the nuances of ESG risk
Yeah.
and can help you tailor your D&O coverage to meet your specific needs.
Now let's shift gears and talk about AI for a second.
Okay.
I think we all agree that AI has the potential to revolutionize the business world,
Of course.
but it also comes with its own set of risks.
Absolutely. And those risks can be even more amplified when AI is used in sensitive areas like lending decisions.
Okay, tell me more.
Let's say a tech company develops a new AI-powered lending platform.
Uh-huh.
This platform is designed to assess creditworthiness more efficiently and accurately than traditional methods.
Right.
But there's a problem.
Okay.
The algorithm that the platform uses turns out to be biased against certain demographic groups.
So even though it's based on data and algorithms, it's still perpetuating existing biases.
Exactly, and that can have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
For people who are unfairly denied loans because of this biased algorithm,
This is a nightmare scenario for any company.
it is.
But it also highlights the importance of having the right safeguards in place when implementing AI.
It does, and this scenario could easily lead to allegations of discrimination and a class action lawsuit against the company.
So it's not just the algorithm itself that's on trial,
Yeah.
but also the board's oversight of that algorithm.
Right. The lawsuit might allege that the board failed to adequately vet the AI system for potential biases
Uh-huh.
and failed to implement proper safeguards to prevent discrimination.
And the consequences of such a lawsuit could be devastating, both financially and reputationally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This scenario just underscores the need for boards to take a proactive approach to managing AI risks.
Right.
It's not enough to just implement the technology. You need to have clear policies and procedures in place
Uh-huh.
to ensure that it's being used responsibly and ethically.
And that includes things like conducting thorough risk assessments,
Mm.
implementing robust testing protocols, and having clear accountability structures in place.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of responsible AI governance within the organization.
So we've talked about ESG risks and AI risks. Are there any other areas where you're seeing a surge in D&O litigation?
Yeah, cybersecurity is another hotbed of activity in the D&O space. With the increasing frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks,
Mm-hmm.
companies are facing unprecedented challenges in protecting their data.
And when data breaches occur, the consequences can be severe.
They can be catastrophic, both financially and reputationally.
Right.
And in the aftermath of a major data breach, shareholders often look to the board for accountability.
So they're basically saying that the board should have done more to prevent the breach from happening.
Precisely, and in some cases, they might even allege that the board knew about vulnerabilities but failed to take appropriate action to address them.
That's a scary thought. It really underscores the importance of boards being proactive about cybersecurity.
It does, and it's not just about having the right technology in place. It's also about having the right policies, procedures, and training programs
Yep.
to ensure that everyone in the organization is aware of the risks and knows how to protect sensitive data.
And it's about having a plan in place to respond quickly and effectively if a breach does occur.
Absolutely. A swift and well-coordinated response can often help to mitigate the damage and preserve the company's reputation.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from
Mhm.
ESG to AI to cybersecurity. It seems like the D&O landscape is becoming increasingly complex and challenging to navigate.
It is, but there's no need to panic.
Right.
By understanding the evolving nature of these risks and taking proactive steps to address them, boards can help to protect themselves, their companies, and their stakeholders.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to provide here today, insights and information that can empower boards to make informed decisions about their D&O protection.
Now let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll distill all of this information into some key takeaways and practical advice for boards seeking to navigate this ever-changing world of risk.
Yeah.
So we've explored some real potential landmines out there in the D&O world,
Yeah.
especially with shareholder activism around ESG and, the implications of AI if it goes wrong.
And cyber.
Oh, and cyber attacks?
Always looming.
Oh my gosh.
Always.
Yeah. So for our listeners who are responsible for risk management at their organizations,
Right.
let's talk brass tacks.
Yes.
What can boards actually do to protect themselves in this environment?
Well, the good news is, you're already ahead of the curve by just being aware of these trends. So
Right.
that's a good first step.
Awareness alone doesn't cut it, though, right?
No, you're absolutely right. We need to translate that awareness into action.
Okay.
And first and foremost, don't let your D&O insurance policy just gather dust on a shelf.
Right.
Take it down, dust it off, and review it with a critical eye. Make sure it's still adequate in light of all the evolving risks we've been discussing.
I think so many people treat insurance as like, set it and forget it.
Right.
But in this context, that could be a costly mistake.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Work with your insurance broker or your insurance professionals
Right.
to adjust your policy limits or even restructure the coverage if needed.
It's like taking your car in for a tune-up.
Yeah,
You don't expect it to run perfectly forever without some adjustments along the way.
exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect analogy.
And speaking of needing regular attention,
Uh-huh.
AI,
Yes.
we talked about those policies and procedures for managing those AI risks.
Right.
Those aren't just for show, right?
No, those are, that's the bare minimum.
Right.
Boards really need to dig in and make sure that those safeguards are robust and they're actually being followed.
Uh-huh.
So, conduct thorough risk assessments, implement testing protocols,
Yeah.
and have clear accountability. These aren't just check boxes.
Right.
These are your lines of defense.
Staying informed about the latest SEC requirements and ESG expectations. That's non-negotiable, right?
Absolutely. That new SEC rule on climate risk disclosure. Consider that a wake-up call.
Yeah.
ESG is not a fad. This is a fundamental shift in how businesses operate and how they're held accountable.
So boards need to be fully briefed on these evolving standards.
Yes.
And to make sure their companies are walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And this is where clear, consistent communication is so important.
Oh, absolutely.
Keeping your board members, your senior leaders, your insurance professionals in the loop about the potential risks.
Yes.
And how you're mitigating them.
That's like a well-rehearsed orchestra.
Yeah.
Every section needs to be in sync to create that harmonious outcome.
I love that visual.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up today, if our listeners take away just one thing, what should it be?
The D&O landscape is changing rapidly. But by being informed, proactive and collaborative boards can not only protect themselves, but also lead their companies into a more sustainable and responsible future.
Such a good point. Well, thank you all for joining us for this deep dive into the world of D&O insurance.
It's been a pleasure.
Stay informed, stay vigilant, and above all, stay protected. We'll see you next time.